Hey, Zel, how's it going? I haven't seen you since May.
Katie, it's the weirdest thing. I had this dream, a nightmare really.
What do you mean?
There was this man, he was dressed all in black and he had all this money and he kept buying up all of the raves. And I got sucked in. It was like he was Darth Vader and...
And you were on the Death Star?
Yes, Katie, it was so scary.
Zel, that wasn't a dream.
What do you mean?
That was real. We were all there.
Wait, then why does it feel like I've been in a blackout since May?
I don't know, but you should really get out of that Luke Skywalker outfit.
Okay, let's start the show!
Hi there, and welcome to the very first Don't Kill the Vibe podcast. I'm Katie Bain.
And I'm Zel McCarthy, and we're here to talk about what's new, what's good, and what's not so good in the wide world of dance music and beyond.
Joining us today is Krystal Rodriguez, an amazing writer and all-around dance music expert. Say hi, Krystal.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, K-Rod.
On this week's episode, Zel is going behind the scenes at the Grammys to find out what the hell they're doing at this time of year. Plus, we have journalists, festival professionals, and dance world odd couple at large, Jemayel Khawaja and Ross Gardiner, in the studio to talk about avoiding burnout during the packed fall festival season and the recent closure of legendary London club Fabric.
And we're also going to talk about the latest and greatest in music and events. So let's do this.
Let's do it.
Big story that's come out in the past week are these rumors about Spotify supposedly buying SoundCloud. Originally, the Financial Times had reported this in the last week of September, and they said that there were, quote, advanced talks happening. Fast Company jumped on it, and they were saying why Spotify should totally buy SoundCloud. NextWeb was saying why Spotify buying SoundCloud would be the best thing ever. There's not a lot of meat on this rumor, but everyone's so excited about it. I'm not entirely sure why.
Well, Zel, you have some pretty strong opinions about why it's not going to happen, right?
Not just opinions, Katie. I have some sources from Silicon Valley that have told me that this is completely never going to happen.
Okay, tell us.
Well, there's no value in either company. Both companies are operating at a loss. They are not profitable. Their shareholders aren't taking anything out of it yet. So for one not profitable company to buy another makes very little sense.
In the sense that Spotify doesn't actually have any money to buy SoundCloud?
They have some capital, and SoundCloud's looking for some more capital, but neither are generating an income at this point.
Right. So that would make it tricky.
It seems unlikely.
But what is the allure of SoundCloud for Spotify?
I think the allure is probably in the conversation that, like the one we're having now.
Right.
There's a huge audience on SoundCloud that's different from the one on Spotify. I could see people being excited about the fact that, like, you know, unsigned and independent artists are now in the same space as, you know, major recording stars who rely on Spotify to get their music out there. But I will get, so the NextWeb in their coverage said, and I'm quoting here, both companies aren't doing well. Spotify's revenue is higher than ever, but it's still losing money. SoundCloud is doing even worse and has been publicly asking for a capital injection. Two companies with a lack of cash but a big common interest. What would happen when you put them together? I think nothing.
Well, time will tell.
Yeah, I think it's funny that every blog, every site loves to jump on a Spotify or SoundCloud rumor whenever they pop up.
Well, and this one was labeled imminent, right?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, when it comes to weight, you don't get heavier than the Financial Times.
Sure.
So
Okay. What do we got next?
I think we'll put a pin in that one. I don't know if you guys saw, Skrillex did a huge feature with Complex. It's in conjunction with his appearance at the Complex Con, which is a 2-day event happening in Long Beach, California at the beginning of November. There were some choice quotes in there.
There were a few choice quotes, mostly concerning, well, I think the ones that were the juiciest concerned his relationship with deadmau5 and his thoughts on deadmau5's forward-facing persona.
Forward-facing.
Yeah.
That's a good way to describe deadmau5. This is what Sonny, we can call him that, right?
Oh, you mean Sonny? Yeah.
Sonny Moore This is what he said about deadmau5. The only time I really got upset with him was when he started taking stabs at Marshmello, acting like such a fucking bully. Marshmello is this young kid who looks up to deadmau5, and the first tweet he gets from deadmau5 is talking shit about him. That's when I had to stand up and be like, stop being a fucking bully.
Well, that would suck.
Krystal, you're kind of a Marshmello expert.
Who's Marshmello?
Exactly. Exactly.
But can you illuminate us a little bit on who Marshmello is and how he's sort of come up in a big way in the last, year?
Yeah, I mean, well, he had a huge performance last year at Heart Day of the Dead, and he's anonymous, which has been a huge part of his persona. You know, a lot of articles and a lot of people have been trying to figure out who he is, actively stalking his social media for any clue whatsoever. And, you know, he's done pretty big remixes for people like Jack U. And yeah, I mean, he's really just had a big rise to stardom, and he tweeted deadmau5, and deadmau5 just, you know, wasn't having it. It's just a regular day in the life of deadmau5.
Do you think that actually hurt Marshmello to have deadmau5 say something negative, or was it kind of like a badge of honor?
Well, who hasn't deadmau5 attacked?
Yeah.
Besides the people on his label, right?
I'd say that's pretty true.
Yeah.
So according to Skrillex in this article, deadmau5 is a nicer person in the DMs.
I thought that part was really interesting. Can you read us that quote?
Yeah. When he said, so this is what Skrillex said. He DM'd me afterwards and was like, if you ever need anybody to talk, if you need a friend, I'm here.
Like what?
Yeah.
Like what does that mean?
I don't know, and so Skrillex said he's more sensitive in the DMs, but when it comes to his public image, I don't know. Maybe it's because his music hasn't been as ambitious.
Ooh.
I think he may be scared to really step outside of what he does, but when someone else tries to do something new and they're successful at it, and then Sonny says, I've put plenty of other records out that aren't as successful, but he doesn't talk about those. He only talks about the things that are popping off, and that's referencing the Bieber record that Skrillex and Diplo did, and that was kind of what set deadmau5 off in the first place.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've heard Diplo is also more sensitive in the DMs.
Oh, Katie.
Sorry.
Maybe off the air for that.
Okay, next time.
Does anyone give a shit about any of this? Do Marshmello's fans care? Krystal, do you know? Is this like a thing?
I'm not sure, but the blogs sure care.
Right.
Blogs.
And I think the blogs, I mean, it gets clicks, right? People talk about these stories. We're talking about it right now, but it's just another day in the life of deadmau5. And ultimately, it's good promo for him. Like, being an asshole is his brand, and it's working.
And what's Skrillex's brand now? Being the moral authority? Is that harsh?
No, I don't think it's harsh.
I think it's, yeah.
I think Skrillex did what any label manager would have to do for a young artist on their label.
Stand up and say, you're a bully.
Yeah, which is true.
Speaking of DJs who may or may not have very large egos, Steve Aoki's been on a publicity blitz.
Sure.
He's no stranger to this time of year. We'll talk a little bit about what this time of year means later when we get to our Grammys conversation. But he's been promoting his documentary, and he also appeared on Charlie Rose, who apparently has, I guess, like some production assistant or intern who really likes EDM, because the big guys seem to go through there. Like, it's
Charlie
a
has
thing.
taken up an interest, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, he had Jackie on
Yeah.
when they were in Cuba and before that. So, yeah. Have you seen the Steve Aoki documentary?
I have not.
Okay. Me neither. Krystal?
I have not.
Yeah. So I
Yeah.
guess we can't. No one in this room has seen it, but you know what, guys? I think if you finish the Amanda Knox documentary and you've run through Stranger Things, give I'll Sleep When I'm Dead a whirl.
Here's something interesting, actually. My mom told me that her friend watched it, and her friend is not a dance music fan and lives in Wisconsin, like rural Wisconsin, and she thought it was very interesting. So maybe it's not for the hardcore fans, but for people that he's trying to reach, since, you know, we already obviously know so much about him.
I think that first of all, shout out your mom in Wisconsin. The only reason why I knew that Aoki was on Charlie Rose is because my dad saw it. So I feel like all this stuff is really not targeted for us, but for our parents, maybe.
And I think that's the point. right? Like they're growing their fan base.
Yeah.
So, good job, Steve.
I'll tell you a little bit about what he said to Charlie Rose, because Charlie asked him, how did you change EDM? Which I think that the answer could have gone in a lot of really wrong ways. And well, you can tell me what you think. He said, I was definitely part of a group of people that brought a level of entertainment to the show. As far as the live show, I brought a level of entertainment that might not have been there before. As far as the production side of things, which is why people come to the show in the first place, you have to have the music to draw people there. My goal is always to work outside my world. I prefer working with hip-hop artists, with country artists, with singers who have not worked in this space. I want to find new ways to reinvent this sound and not be so pigeonholed.
Well, I think that actually seems true to form, knowing what we know about Steve and how he started playing such small clubs and parties in LA and sort of transition out of that, it seemed like as fast as he could. Like you used to go see him in Hollywood at tiny bars, right?
Yes. But I mean, I think the only thing I disagree with in what he said there is that you have to have the music to draw people there. Because when I would see him at, notably this one place called, well, there were a few places, but LAX was a club that he would play at. Another one was Forbidden City, which is right on Vine near Hollywood Boulevard. I forget what it is now. It's across from what is now Avalon. But no one was going because of Steve Aoki originals. They were going because of the show, of the entertainment that he brought, even at that point, before he was caking anyone. It was a party, and he was a great party DJ.
Right. And therein kind of lies an irony, right? Because I feel like he gets attacked a lot for being mainstream or a sellout, what have you. But he's kind of doing the same thing that he's always been doing.
Totally.
So.
And he is a really hard worker. His team is really hardworking. You can't knock them for what they've earned for themselves.
100%. Yeah.
But I guess his core fans aren't the ones watching him on Charlie Rose, or apparently on his documentary on Netflix.
No. Maybe we'll watch it this week and let you know.
It's gotten good reviews. I don't want it to sound like we're hating on it.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's been well received.
Totally.
Also well received, Nico Jar's album.
Yeah. Okay. So I gave it a few listens, and the initial reviews that I heard of it before I heard it were that he was trying too hard, that he was reaching too far, and that he had sort of what is that expression? Jumped the shark. Yeah. And then I listened to it and I loved it. And I am a long-standing Nicholas Jar fan, and it's certainly not. It's not that similar to Space's Only Noise, which is his debut album from 2011. But I think there's a lot of interesting moments in it. It's not a dance album, but it's a beautifully composed electronic album. Have you listened to it, Krystal?
I haven't, but having listened to his NIMS EPs and his previous work, I'm quite excited to.
Yeah. It's he's not giving the people what they want. He's giving the people what he wants the people to have.
But you guys are both fans. What would you have wanted from him other than this album?
I think in past experiences in a live setting, and the guest that we're having later in the show can speak to this as well, he doesn't really give you a beat a lot of the time. He kind of makes it more challenging than maybe you would like. It's not a satisfying set, and this isn't necessarily a totally satisfying album in the way that it satiates that, urge to dance or whatever. But it's more contemplative than that, and it's textured and layered, and it's not as straightforward. There's no bangers on this album. There's no radio hits.
Is it too, because based on what you said before about the pre-release reviews and kind of what he said in this Pitchfork interview that came out in the last week, it sounded like maybe he was over-intellectualizing. Does it sound like that when you're listening to the album?
Yes.
Let me read to you what he told Pitchfork.
Sure.
He said, this is a quote, "It's hard for me to not make a record about America right now. I feel an affinity with the political aspect of dance music. Maybe it can increasingly become a place of protest."
Yeah. And then later in that interview, he also told a story about a small class he was teaching at some college recently, and he had all of the students make a track, and then he layered all of them on top of each other in what he believed was a political statement. He's he's going for it. And I appreciate that, even if it doesn't necessarily translate.
I think I've always thought that like I should enjoy Nico Jar's music more than I necessarily do. Is there, from Krystal or Katie, is there a reason why someone should listen to it that you can just explain?
Well, yeah, I think the early stuff, the first album is great. All of his work with Darkside, amazing. And I think much more accessible.
This album feels like it's a bit more of homework than...
Or just something you want to listen to at home when you're mellowing out, you know?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's worth a listen. Give it a shot. And then give it a second shot, because it is challenging. But it gets better each time.
I'm curious as to what, like, if this is a trend now where people want to see, as Nico Jar says, that dance music is a place of protest. Where does that go? Because, you know, ultimately, if it's dance music, it's going to be listened to in a club on a dance floor. That's not a place where you're resisting anything. It's actually an isolated part of the world where you can do whatever you want already. So what are you protesting? It's something we can think about.
Thank you.
All right, Krystal, thanks for joining us. We'll be back in a second.
I'm a monster.
Joining us now are two illustrious gentlemen, Ross Gardiner and Jemayel Khawaja.
Legends.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
Thanks
Thanks
for
for
being here.
well, thanks for having us, guys.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Delighted.
So, Jemayel, you told me a while ago that your formative experiences in nightclubs happened at Fabric in London. You were a younger man at the time, probably a more innocent man. This is where you went to form yourself as a music fan.
Well, I didn't know where I was going, actually. I was just starting grad school in London, and I just sort of stumbled into I think I had responded to a post on Facebook of somebody saying, I'm new to England, do you want to be friends? And I met this kid, his name was Liam, and a few weeks later we went to Fabric, and I was not into nightclubs at all. I was into prog rock, you know, and I sort of went down into the labyrinthian darkness of Fabric, took some strange substances that somebody gave me, and my whole life changed that one night. I don't think I definitely would not be here were it not for that nightclub.
Do you remember who was playing that first night?
No, I don't. It was probably lots of very obnoxious, in-your-face jump-up drum and bass that I would want nothing to do with at this point. But back then, it totally blew my mind, and I loved it.
Yeah. And how often were you going once after that first time?
At least once a month, but there were other clubs that we were going to a lot. I pretty much dove deeply into the world of sort of UK-based music around the time.
And what is special about Fabric? Because I've been there, you know, a number of times over the years, but for Londoners in particular, it holds a special place. What is it that makes it what it is?
Well, it's a spiritual home for bass music in particular. It's just, I don't know. It's been around for a long time. It's part of the furniture. It's where this music gets its. Before it hits the world, it sort of has its formative process in the recesses of Fabric. I think what's going on at the moment there is really unfortunate, but it's indicative of a lot of stuff that's going on around the world.
Let's talk about what's going on in there at the moment. It's basically they've been shuttered by the city. Is it?
Yeah. The Islington Council has decided to shut them down. They've had about, I think it's 6 drug deaths over the last 2 years, I believe. 4 in the last year or so. And yeah, I mean, basically it just seems like the writing might be on the wall for them. But at the same time, the big argument that's going on in the clubland right now is that Fabric is an extremely well-run establishment in terms of how much they actually police and protect the clubbers that are coming in. But the problem is, it seems like that they have been victimized and sort of an example is being made out of them. But there's also a lot of people that think there's a little foul play going on there as well, and that there's real estate projects
I think
that are happening around them, and I think that's probably a big part of it.
There are people who want to build
Yeah.
buildings in the space where fabric exists, and so
Yeah.
they're using the drug issues as a pretense to close them.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, like they had to go at them earlier in 2015, I think, tried to put sniffer dogs on the door, and they were it was basically a court order that Fabric were going to have to put sniffer dogs on the door and increase the security, and like everybody kind of came out and was just like sniffer dogs have been shown to make clubs and events and festivals more dangerous because it's not going to stop people from taking drugs. They're just going to front load, and if you're going to go and bang all your drugs before you get in, then you're in a pretty dangerous position when you walk through the door. I mean, like, this is just another example of, like, just the authorities being unwilling to change their stance on drug policy and actually make meaningful change in it. They're just, like, trying to just shut it down. And it's not going to happen, you know?
Well, it seems to be the case all over the world. I mean, they're talking about doing away with festivals in Goa, India. If you look at LA and California, you know, the rave task force continues to sort of follow through with draconian drug policy at the doors of festivals. So you see what's going on in London. It really seems like there is something along the lines of a worldwide war on rave music.
Hang on, but when we're talking about a war on rave music and these government agencies who were in whatever locale going after these venues or these festivals, but then we're also acknowledging that people are doing drugs. I mean, Jemayel, you said that people do. You did some unknown substances, and Ross, you're saying that if they're drug sniffer dogs, people are just going to do their drugs. What is the solution if you know, as
harm reduction?
The very first thing that has to be done is that there has to be an acceptance that this is going to happen either way. Like, you shut the clubs down, people are going to go somewhere else and take their drugs.
But wait, hang on.
It's a societal problem. It's not a dance music problem.
Hang on. I know that. Hang on. That's like, I hate that line. That's like the line that like every like dance music group that wants to save clubs says, like, it's not a dance music problem, it's a culture problem. But fuck that, because no one's gonna take a fistful of Molly and hang out in their living room on a Saturday night.
No. Let me tell you something. No, listen, look, right. If you're able to educate people well enough, they're not going to take a fistful of Molly anymore because they're going to know that that's going to fucking kill them.
Exactly.
Like, this is the thing. If you're going to continue to take a stance of prohibition across the board and be completely immovable on that, you're going to keep having drug deaths. This culture's not going to go away just if you shut the clubs down. Like, this is the thing. I saw a really, really great tweet after Fabric closed.
Great tweet.
A great tweet. I wish I had it up. I wish I was a bit more as prepared as you guys have been. But
Was
like,
it John Hopkins?
there was a promoter. Yeah, was saying that basically, like, Fabric is shut down, and
that.
now there's promoters across the entire, like, shady promoters across the entire city booking people for shady warehouse parties. Like, those clandestine parties are considerably more unsafe.
I love shady
Well,
warehouse parties.
I love them
it all
too.
goes back underground, much like the drug trade. You know, like, people are taking adulterated, really unsafe drugs because obviously they're not legal, and they're getting most of their harm reduction information from their drug dealer because these people aren't allowed to be in clubs or at festivals. And so if people would just acknowledge that this stuff is going to happen and properly educate their fans, you could avoid deaths, maybe not all deaths, but I think significantly fewer people would die.
Yeah, I don't think we can trust the government to really take care of this. I think we as a community have to take the lead with harm reduction ourselves.
But it's really hard because, like, we've known this for such a long time. Like, the dance music community has known about the problem that it has. And look, I'm acknowledging what you're saying, that this is not just a societal problem. Like, I know that that's a line that people that are for harm reduction
And I think
roll
it's
out.
an excuse too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, like, we have been well aware that this problem has existed for a long time. For as long as, like, people have been taking ecstasy in the UK, they have known that dance music has a particularly, like, strong problem with this. But if we keep having our hands shackled and are unable to actually educate people and actually do meaningful change, then there's nothing we can do, man. Like, the culture's not going to go away, the drugs aren't going to go away, so we have to just acknowledge and find a way that we can work together.
I think that is kind of the goal, though, for any kind of government agency, is to make the drugs go away. And so it is, I think, a difficult position for any reasonable body to take, which is that, hey, the drugs aren't going to go away, when that is actually the thing that most government agencies are trying to make happen.
I think what needs to happen is that there needs to things like addiction and death need to be things that they can realistically try and take away, and not think about drugs themselves. It's think about the harm that they do to users. Like, in Portugal, you decriminalize drugs and provide like adequate like facilities for people to basically come off drugs safely.
But Portugal is a small country.
Okay, I'm not. Netherlands is doing something similar.
Also a small country.
Yeah, they're small countries,
Yeah.
but I mean, it doesn't mean to say that what they're doing there can't, in some part, doesn't mean we
Sure.
can't take elements of it
Sure.
and
Well,
introduce them into the US.
I
or
think
the
it's just
UK.
important to acknowledge that what we're doing here isn't working.
Yeah.
So we can't adopt Portugal's system, but we can adopt elements of it and massage our system to do something even a little bit different, because we're not being effective at solving this problem. Like prohibition is not an effective way to treat this. There's a really amazing book. I highly recommend everyone read it. It's called Chasing the Scream, and it's about the war on drugs and addiction at large. And
That's a terrifying title. Chasing the Scream?
But you remember it, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a guy, his name is Johan Hari, and he actually gives also a really good TED Talk in which he kind of jumps to the main bullet points in this book. But if you want to sort of redefine your idea of the war on drugs, why it exists, the nature of addiction, and possible solutions, I highly recommend you read it. It's a great, quick, well-written book.
It's not just the government; it's also the media. You want to hear a scary phrase: "The summer of death." When you have
Oh my God.
Dennis Romero at the LA Weekly and Rongong Lin at the LA Times leading a witch hunt against festivals.
I'm going to defend both of those guys. Well, not so much Dennis, 'cause I have no interest in defending
I mean, they're
Dennis,
polemics. You read their articles, and
Yeah,
they
it's
so heavily
Yeah,
But
it's scaremongering, man. Like
it's-
you're
Everyone, the LA Times, I think, has been really on top of what's been going on in LA County with regards to drug-related deaths at festivals. And every time I read their reporting, I have a really hard time finding what is inaccurate
The
in it.
summer
Yet-
of death? Are you
Yet
kidding?
every time there's an article published, the entire dance music community wants to come out and just attack it. And it's like, hey, if you can do a better job covering the story, go for it. But no one has, and no one has also made the case as to why public space, and that's really been the issue in Los Angeles, and laws are different in different municipalities for it to apply. But why should a public space that is effectively entrusted to the people, be allowed to be a space where people are doing these drugs, whether or not they're going away?
That's totally fair. Mm-hmm. I don't necessarily think these festivals have a right to take place in the public lands, like national parks and stuff like that.
Here's another thing, and it kind of, I guess, it'd segue into what I suppose the next topic of conversation is. But I think it's an issue that so many of these festivals are happening during months where the temperatures are getting up over 100 degrees, and these things are going on.
Wait, so is this a climate change issue?
This is a climate change issue for sure. Yeah. I'm here for Jill Stein. Yeah, I switched from Bernie, Zel. I'm here for Jill Stein.
Is that a DJ?
Yeah, come for it. Still
DJ
Jane.
Jill Stein. She won't show up.
DJ Still Jane. No, but this is a serious point though.
Yeah.
I can't really when your festivals are getting up over 100 degrees. I mean, you go on a dance floor at EDC Las Vegas. I mean, it's 125 degrees in there. You know what I mean? That's
Why? But let's also back up.
dangerous.
Why is there a dance floor at EDC Las Vegas in June?
right. That's what I'm.
No,
Well, hold on.
no, hang on. Why is that?
Because
why is
someone
that-
died.
Someone died at the Los Angeles Electric Dancing Carnival, and so they had to move it to Nevada, where it is much hotter and less safe to have an outdoor rave where people are doing drugs.
I don't know. I'm sure there's lots and lots of reasons why this can't be, but why can't these festivals
Well, hold
in
on,
these
listen.
places be happening at different times of the year?
Nobody dies lightning in a bottle. People don't die at Burning Man. People don't die at symbiosis.
Why-
is it only
Those
EDM
you go to
festivals?
the-
those
well-
people take just as many drugs.
Why? Because you go to these
hippie festivals. Call them what they are.
Oh yeah, come on, man.
Call it what
Hit
it
us with
is.
it.
people being
Say
naked
it.
and
Say it.
camping in tents.
Absolutely.
Boofing patchouli.
Disgusting things happening. Wait, why are these festivals safer places to do drugs?
Well, and there's one primary reason that I think the big promoters would tell you right away, and it's because they're much smaller. But beyond that, they
I
do
don't think they're much smaller. Lightning in a bottle is 25,000 people.
Yeah.
well, which is
Burning Man's
significant.
what, 80?
It's significantly smaller than
Well, hard.
EDC
Hard
or
is where
hard.
the deaths happen in LA.
How big was hard this year?
I'm not 25,000. I don't think it's massive. Actually, I might be wrong.
I think it was a little larger. I think they were reduced to about 30. Wow.
It's different culture, man.
Well,
it's totally
there you go.
different.
I
It's a
think-
totally
And
different culture.
what are those cultural differences?
Well, the cultural
Community.
differences, I think, is community is a large part of it for sure. Dance Safe have a presence there. The Zendo Project have a presence at all these festivals. Basically, in there. I mean, whether people use them or not, the very aspect, the very
Dan
fact
Safe-
that they're there.
Dan
people
Safe
do
and
use it.
Zendo Project, they're both harm
Oh, sure,
reduction
yeah.
organizations.
Correct.
Which I think, so, and for anyone who doesn't know or follow the story regularly, Katie, you actually know all about why harm reduction information isn't available at festivals.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there is a law, an old law on the books, actually signed into law by Joe Biden, who was then a senator, who this law made it illegal for promoters to provide harm reduction materials to their attendees.
And the reason for that is because it encourages, or that it can be perceived to encourage.
It's perceived to encourage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And harm reduction is really, I mean, from my exposure to it, it is kind of crazy because it gives you details on drugs that you've never otherwise had in your hands. But it tells you like what color the pills should be, and like what kinds of things are okay and what kind of things are not okay. And it's, I mean, if you went to school in the United States, you had a modicum of drug education. This goes beyond that, and it does seem to be more instructive how to do drugs.
You can look at it that way, or it's how to not die
better
from taking drugs.
than
And
destructive.
I think that's the way you should be looking at it. You know what I mean? Not looking at like, hey, this is a guidebook on how you should take drugs, kids. It's just like, no, if you choose to take drugs, this is how you should take them, so that you don't become a statistic. You know?
Yeah, but
it's practical information if you choose to take drugs versus being cloaked in drink water.
Right.
You know, which is not.
Or just say no.
Just say no is not going to work, man.
Right.
You know what I mean? Sex education and abstinence should tell you just that much. You know what I mean? People are going to do it anyway. You should educate people. You know?
Exactly.
People are not going to abstain. Like
The way it is now is exactly that. It's like abstinence only education, which we know doesn't work.
So a producer just handed me a fact. 147,000 people attended the 2-day hard festival.
I've died this summer.
So
Very wrong.
You're
Sorry.
very
So
wrong.
lightning in a bottle is considerably smaller.
Considerably
Still
smaller.
massive.
Than
Still a big
hard.
It's still
festival.
it's
It's
gotten
people
much
a day.
bigger. It's gotten much bigger.
Okay, so 120, right? That's 40,000 people a day.
147,000.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's more.
But in lightning ball, that's,
75.
no. But listen, hold
do the
on.
numbers.
Yeah,
That's
roughly.
they break down their attendances per day. If you're going to use the same math, then lightning ball had 90,000 people because it's
That's right.
There's people coming through the gates every
That's
day
right.
at hard,
Yeah.
whereas they're camping at lightning ball.
Sure. I mean, I think, I think what Ross was saying about the cultural differences really are significant.
Well, what are those cultural differences as you see them?
As I see them, I see a considerably more relaxed environment. The music is definitely not as like hardcore. Okay, one thing I've always taken umbrage with the EDM DJs, which I think is pretty shameful, is like if you go to Las Vegas, you go to a pool party or something like that, or you go and see them at a festival, grab on the mic and she's like, "Who's getting fucked up tonight?" Like that kind of mentality that is vast across the whole EDM scene is not there.
I mean, it's in the songs. I mean, it's not just it's not just on the mic. It's
right?
like,
And like even just down to things like that, like there's so many different. There's the environment is completely different, and it's not the kind of environment where people are trying to get completely blasted.
Well, also at these EDM festivals, the median age is significantly lower, and when it's kids,
Right.
and when people die, it's usually very young kids experimenting with drugs for the first time. They don't really know what they're doing. I think mentioning community again at a hippie festival, everybody walks in with the notion that they have an obligation to look out for the person next to them, which really doesn't happen at a big EDM festival. You're elbowing the person next to you, trying to get a space
Closer
forward
to
for Calvin
Marshmallow.
Harris. Marshmallow.
we don't need to drag Calvin Harris here.
Let's take Marshmallow back. Or is everybody at the Transformational Festivals all just kind of wandering to Nico Jar together, frolicking,
That's right.
getting ready for
Right.
no drops.
Yeah, holding hands and calling.
Contemplating the political nature
Oh
of
my
the tracks
God.
they're about to hear. It's beautiful.
So this is, and to bring it back to Fabric for a second,
Right.
what's happening now with Fabric since the club has been forced to close is there's been a campaign that Fabric has led under the hashtag Save Our Culture, which I think is a very big kind of term, our culture,
also vague.
I mean, it's also vague and maybe lofty, maybe a little self-important. This is the letter they posted when they announced I'll read part of it. When they announced the campaign, they said, "We are Fabric. This is not how it ends."
Okay.
Which I mean, that's some insight maybe. They said, "The police have revoked our license to present music, art, and culture, something we have been doing with great pride for nearly 2 decades. They abused archaic licensing laws in order to close us down, and they will continue to do so if we do not come together and take action now. This is about more than Fabric. An entire way of life is under threat."
Rinsing.
Rinsing the 4-4. No, I agree with that. Look, I mean, this is the one thing that I think has been very good about this situation. The one silver lining with this whole fabric situation is that the clubbers are uniting behind the idea that we need to protect what we have in our culture. Like in Amsterdam, they have this guy called Merrick who has the title of the Night Mayor.
Right.
And this guy
and they have one in London now too.
They have one
right?
in London, yeah. And there's another guy called Lutz who does it with. He has the Club Commission in Berlin, which is a very, very well organized commission of 150 like art venues. So that could be like electronic music. It could be like theater spaces, whatever. But basically, what they do is these people, these nightmares, they essentially operate as a go-between between the clubs and the like municipal governing bodies, and they try and like look out and sort of introduce things from both sides of the fence. And like this is what needs to start happening, is like everybody needs to start rallying behind the idea that we all have to protect this thing. And I think that's what's being said in that. But I think it's a valuable point.
Is protecting the physical space of the club protecting the culture? I've never
with the place
found
like
that
Fabric,
myself.
Sure. I mean, that place is an institution.
It's a huge moral defeat
Yeah.
for the culture if that place is taken away.
The mixed series
DJs
can still live on. Those mixed series are great. The Fabric,
Sure.
Right,
Fabric
but you
line,
would not have the
physical space.
Jemayel Khawaja transcendent experience
Yeah, I could be
changing your life
I could be listening to Mumford and Sons
without the
instead, God.
physical space. Exactly.
I mean, look, I get why
yes,
everyone
cover band.
at this table feels very strongly about defending places like Fabric. It's something that we are really connected to. We've all been to clubs and had great experiences at them. We wouldn't want to see someone misunderstanding them and misusing laws to go after them. But I'm wondering how the argument gets won, and not just with the hashtag, but like,
I
you
don't
know,
think it
what's...
does. I don't think we win this one.
Well, is it money? Because it sounds like what you're saying is that it's more nefarious than just like, oh, police and officials don't like people doing drugs and dying. It's that gentrification is happening and we need the space to
Right.
build other
Absolutely.
For
things.
sure,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So,
I mean, gentrification is the enemy to a lot of things, not just club culture.
Yeah, definitely. It's been it's like, again, that's why like the Club Commission in Berlin exists, you know what I mean? It's to protect against things like that. You know, it's like they have things in place where like you have to like have like adequate noise protection, because so many places are coming and building around the areas that the clubs are. I mean, clubs are the authors of their own demise in this situation. They move into areas where they can make as much noise as they can, and they can have people stumbling around at night. But then what do? Is they make that area cool.
Oh, sure.
And then all of a sudden people want to move in there, and then
Right.
those people move in there, and then the fucking yuppies move in,
Yeah.
and suddenly the yuppies don't want loud noises at
Do
night.
we
and
have
that's it.
yuppies in 2016? Is that
Oh, it still
Yes.
still
Oh,
exists.
yeah.
For
Yes.
sure.
I didn't know. I thought that was like an old time.
it's a
thing.
different
Oh,
breed
no.
of yuppie.
Now we
right?
just
Yeah,
call
I know,
them
tiny
assholes
soul,
with
you know.
jobs.
Yeah.
Soho House
Exactly.
members.
401
Sorry.
cunts.
Sorry, I didn't
He's
mean
not getting
it.
into Soho House now.
Never again. I love it there. It's fine.
It's the wise promoter who's been a veteran promoter in New York and San Francisco and in LA once told me that anytime a club closes, it is always because of real estate.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so.
And I think this might be one of those situations as well.
I mean, well, we just get used to the process of sort of things falling apart and regenerating in a different way. Nothing lasts forever, and dance music has always been about moving forward and trying to do things in the future. So even though it sucks, nothing lasts forever, and we should be happy that we had it and try to look forward and wait. Let's go back to the O-ring outside of the orbital.
Yeah, around the M25. That's right.
Go party in the woods.
Wow, parties in the woods.
Go transform yourself.
Speaking of the
Being
future,
transformed.
you guys might not be aware, but this is a time of year when the record industry is thinking about the future, specifically to this winter when the biggest award in music happens, the Grammys. People don't always think of September 30th as an important date, but it is the cutoff for eligibility for a record to be nominated for the Grammys. So I headed over to the Recording Academy recently and talked to the VP of Awards, Bill Freimuth. He filled me in on why they have that weird calendar and everything else we've always wanted to know about how those awards work. So the reason why I wanted to talk to you this time of year is because September 30th is an important date in the Grammy calendar. Most people don't know about it. It's the cutoff for eligibility. Why is eligibility this weird year of October to September? It doesn't make sense.
Well, to us, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's we for the awards process, we really kind of live and die by the calendar, and that kind of end date is an indication of how much time we need to put the ballot together, go through 2 rounds of voting, and have the nominations in time for the telecast producers to begin booking talent based on the nominations, and the winners in time to have envelopes at the show. So that's basically what we need. October, November, December, January. We need that 4-month period to have all of those things happen, and so we have to cut it off in September.
Rather than have the awards like in May or something.
Yeah, well, whenever we would have the telecast,
Yeah.
we need to have a cutoff period of 4 months before.
Got it.
And we've been in the late January, early February for I think time immemorial as
Right.
far as the Grammys goes. So.
And just for people who really might be mystified by this, the Oscars don't need that kind of cutoff time. What makes music in the recording industry different from the film industry like that?
Probably mostly volume.
Yeah.
I mean, there are, the last time we looked, there were 650 movies that were eligible for Oscar contention. We got over 21,000 entries this year. And so the processing of all those entries is extremely time consuming. Yeah.
Do you feel like you listen to most of them on any given year?
Me personally?
Yeah.
No, I couldn't possibly. But my team, yes. I
Yeah.
mean, the awards department, we have 17 people full time, and during this time of year, we have an additional 5, I think, or 6 temps
Okay.
who join us just to get through everything. And somebody listens to each entry. I mean, each entry gets listened to by somebody.
Even if it never gets nominated, it's been
Right.
listened to.
It's been listened to.
That's got to make people feel good.
Yeah, and often more than once. I would say in most cases more than one time.
That's pretty cool. Best New Artist is an award that everybody always has some idea about. Meghan Trainor's the current, I guess, title holder. In the past, there have been a variety of artists from across genres. Skrillex was a big breakthrough nomination for dance music when that happened a few years ago. But how do artists become eligible for that category? What is it really recognizing when they win?
Well, I do want to clarify, first of all, that Meghan Trainor will not be passing a physical crown to the next person.
What? That sounds like it should happen, though, right?
But honestly, it is our single most complicated category as far as the rules go. We have basically, most of our categories have about a half a page to a page of rules. This has 2 full pages, single spaced, of all this is eligible, this is not eligible. But essentially, what we want is to catch artists at a time where they have broken through into the public consciousness for the first time during the eligibility year. So, we say that you have to have at least 1 album or at least 5 singles out in the marketplace to be eligible for the first time.
Okay.
And you can have no more than 3 albums or 30 singles or tracks on the back end, and you can enter into the category 3 times during your career.
Oh, wow. So people will submit themselves if they've had a really big year, even if they've been an artist active for several years before that.
Right, but then we have these committees, our screening or sorting committees, that there's a long discussion about everybody entered for Best New Artist, and they will often remove somebody, even if they are technically eligible based on their releases. They will remove them if they broke through into the public consciousness in a big way a year or 2 or 5 before.
How do you define breaking through in the public consciousness, especially now? Because, 10 years ago, it's like, all right, if you're on the radio, if you're played on MTV, there were some basic metrics that you could evaluate that. But now there's so many different ways that people are hearing music. Is there a standard that you guys use for figuring that out?
It's tough. It's highly subjective. We do use certain things like, somebody was nominated for Best New Artist at another award show 3 years ago. That would make us look weird to nominate somebody now for that. Or if, even though we don't technically consider chart positions and things like that, if somebody had a #1 hit single 2 years ago, we figure that is an indication that they've broken through to the public consciousness.
Yeah.
Certainly if you've been nominated for a Grammy Award before. That's generally an automatic disqualification.
You're not new.
Yeah, not very new.
Okay, one thing that I feel like trips people up every year as well, especially now, these days, is the genre classifications. Because so much music, especially if you listen to the radio, it's hip-hop, pop, EDM, all blending into one thing, or nothing at all. How do you guys determine which track or which artist goes into which category?
We have 24 different committees, sorting committees, that are populated by genre experts. And so we have, a reggae committee, a dance electronic music committee, we have an alternative music committee, et cetera, for 24 of them. And they are actually charged with going through the lists of everything entered in those categories, anything with which they're not familiar, which no matter how much of an expert you are, there's going to be lots of stuff in that list you haven't heard
21,000
yet.
submissions,
Exactly.
Yeah, there better be.
And so they listen to the ones that they haven't heard. And the ones that are really borderline, they'll have some very serious discussions. Sometimes they'll actually go track by track and say, this track is pop, this track is R&B, there's another R&B track, there's another pop track, and we go by, the album should be at least 50% of one genre.
I know in the past this has happened. I have an anonymous source, let's just say, that a song, I won't say what it was kicked out of the dance category over to pop, but pop didn't pick it up. What happens to those artists, to those tracks that kind of end up in purgatory? And I ask because I could see it happening this year even, for example, perhaps with Calvin Harris and Rihanna's record, This Is What You Came For. It's a dance record in its roots, but it's a pop record in the way it was released and consumed. What does the Academy feel about those situations where you have something that's kind of not dance enough for the dance people, but not pop enough for the pop people, or those other kind of similar circumstances?
Well, one thing I would say is that the dance screening or sorting committee is made up of people who really live in that world. And as a result, they tend to be a little more restrictive, maybe, certainly than pop. Pop is probably our largest umbrella and the most welcoming because it's kind of the least well-defined, even in the public consciousness, I would say. What would happen in a case like that, let's say there is a track that was entered in dance said no, they sent it to pop, and pop said no also. Well, the largest of these committees is called the Core Room, and they are primarily dealing with rock and pop and best new artist, but they also spend a half a day meeting in joint session with the R&B committee to deal with conflicts among, or borderline cases with R&B and pop.
Right.
But then they're also the final arbiters when two committees disagree. And so that happens quite a bit, actually. Last year we had a big one where both country and Americana really wanted this one album. And so, and they could not reach any kind of resolution, so they brought it into the core room. The chairs of each of those committees sat down and made their arguments, and then we listened through almost the entire album. And the committee ended up voting for it to go to Americana.
Can you tell me which album that was?
That was Don Henley.
Oh,
This is a year ago. This
Oh,
was
wow.
last year.
Yeah.
So, which we gathered ultimately was where the artist was sort of most happy with it being anyway. So
Yeah.
all's well that ends well there. With pop and dance, even though the pop room is the final arbiter, they give a lot of credence and respect to the genre experts in the dance room. And so, 99 times out of 100, if the dance committee says this is dance, they're good with that. If they say it's pop, they're going to be good with that too. There have only, this year there were no arguments about that. There were no real extreme cases. In the last couple of years, there's usually less than a handful a year where there's enough of a disagreement that it turns into a substantive discussion where we're really listening through everything.
I've heard about those disagreements. That's what that's what I know. That kind of peer selection process, I imagine, is also what has made the Grammys just an inherently diverse selection of artists. And earlier this year there was a lot of attention paid to what the Motion Picture Academy does, and the Oscars being so white. That's never really been a problem for the Grammys. Is that something you guys are still kind of aware of and just maintaining that cultural diversity, or is it just automatically happen because of the nature of the recording industry itself?
Probably some of both.
Yeah.
I think that the music industry on the whole is not as white as the movie industry on the whole, and almost has always been that way. I mean, I was just talking with somebody not too long ago about how they made a movie about Jackie Robinson joining Major League Baseball.
Yeah.
And granted, that was a huge deal, but it was 30 years after music was integrated.
Right.
The early jazz music, the Duke Ellington Orchestra,
Yeah.
which is not to say that they didn't have difficulties in the marketplace and in society because
Right,
of,
there were radio stations
because of who they
bands.
were.
Yeah.
But the music community, the community of artists, and the record labels, and to some extent the radio people, it was all about getting good music out to people, not getting music by a certain looking group of people out there. As far as our awards go, we try to be colorblind, but I think that's a dream in our society today. Unfortunately, I don't think it's really possible.
Awards notwithstanding, what has been your favorite album of this year? The thing that you're just listening to?
I can't do that.
Come on!
I can't do. You might be able to ask me that after our second ballot has been returned.
Okay.
But until then, the very last thing I want to do is to influence any of our voters who might be listening to this.
Do you listen? Okay, then I'll just ask generally. Do you listen to only new music during the eligibility year, or do you go back and have your old favorites? Because there's so much obviously that you need to listen to.
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. I would say during this time of year, I listen to less older music.
Yeah.
Because I have so much newer music to listen that I have to listen to, but also that I want to listen to.
Right.
It's like, oh, here's a new album by X person, and I really liked their last album, so
Totally.
I'm looking forward to hearing this.
Yeah.
My tastes are really eclectic. I really listen to lots of different kinds of music. People often ask me, well, what's your favorite genre? And I don't really have one. I like good music, and if it's good chamber music for classical, that's great. If it's good R&B, that's great, and everything in between, so.
Okay, well, I'll come back and ask you
Okay.
about that last question. Bill Freimuth, thank you so much.
My pleasure, absolutely. Thanks a lot, Zel.
All right, so Grammy year starts for this coming award season starts October 1st, 2015, and runs through September 30th, 2016. What do you guys think will be nominated this year?
Oh man,
The Chainsmokers.
it's true. That's true.
Last year was really good, wasn't it? What did it have? Jamie XX was last year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
What else
he's
was
nominated.
good?
Well, Jack U cleaned up.
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah. I'm fine with that. I quite like that Bieber song.
I-
I'm an underground head man,
kinda
but
have-
I really like it.
You kind of have Justin
I just-
Bieber hair.
I know, yeah.
And that's a
I know,
compliment.
I
It's like
know,
the nice
yeah.
swoosh,
Thanks,
like
man.
the
He
classic.
has the
Bieber.
hairless body of Justin Bieber
I
as well.
do as well, yeah. I'm shiny like a fridge door.
So I've heard.
Strange. Any other predictions? I mean, the consensus from who I've talked to is that this is going to be the year of Adele and Beyonce.
Yeah. Well,
I haven't cared about the
I don't
Grammys
have any opinions on it.
decades.
Okay, I think part of the reason why is because they only hand out like 8 awards during the actual show. I feel like they de-emphasize their own importance by doing that.
My concern has always been that it's just this sort of relic of the mainstream that I just don't. It's just not. I don't know. It's not
Because
what,
you're so underground. That's
no,
right.
I don't even care about labeling about what my tastes are. That's just not what I care about. I don't know. I think it's funny to look at as a spectacle, as something to make fun of, but like, I really don't care.
The spectacle element of it's interesting. Like, I mean, I've found like kind of, I don't know, like everybody trying to sort of one up each other with better performances. Like Coachella's turned into that as well. You know, it's just like every year people are trying to like outdo one another with bigger performances. I'm just like, just write better songs. Just write better songs, man. I'm happy with that.
Has it gotten to a point though where like you can't go to Coachella or watch the Grammys without if you don't see some like mind-blowing collaboration, are you going to be disappointed?
Absolutely.
I feel like some people are for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Like if Beyonce shows up at the VMAs and doesn't perform for like half an hour, people are going to be like, "Well, she filmed that in."
yeah, absolutely.
she's
But I mean, like,
Yeah.
you know, it's like Drake's there one weekend, and then like Kanye's there the next weekend, and like, what are you gonna do next year? It's like Tupac hologram, and like, where you get like
That's
how where,
Ross,
where
that
does
Tupac
it
hologram
end?
was like 5 years ago.
Or something like that. I don't know, Frankie Knuckles hologram. Do you know what I mean? Let's bring him back.
Oh.
Yeah. What? Too soon?
That'd be no, that'd be great.
Would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I think we should start a campaign to do it to fundraise for a Frankie Knuckles hologram.
At the Yuma tent.
All right, we'll get a GoFundMe on the website.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So we'll be tuning in, and we have some time. We'll keep everyone updated on who gets nominated, but it's quite a process. And look, I mean, I know that sometimes the awards themselves feel like they're from yesteryear, but they do a lot of good for young people who are learning about music. That's the main imperative of the Academy.
Young people, you mean viewers or people that are tuning into the Grammys?
No, I mean like music students. That's actually like
right,
what they
okay.
do that has nothing to do with the awards is their big project during the year, and it's about bringing together musicians and artists who we've never heard of, who are usually like below the line talent,
Sure.
who go to schools, who are working with youth orchestras and youth music programs, and bringing in people to the arts and making sure that there's arts funding in places where it still exists.
Definitely. They're a benevolent organization.
Yeah, even if Jemayel is too busy on.
Did you say benevolent or irrelevant?
Benevolent.
That's why I love you.
Let's take a look at what's coming up in music. Katie, you have some things you're excited about.
I do.
Well, first of all, did everyone see the video? Not just listen to the song, but the video for the Weeknd and Daft Punk track.
No.
Oh, you guys didn't watch it?
No.
Oh, you watched it, but you didn't like it.
No,
I didn't
I was
watch it.
very disappointed with the song.
Yeah, you
They've
like the
released-
song
he's
at
released
all.
another one as well. It's even worse. Like I don't know how you like. He should go back to Max Martin as soon as he can.
It's true.
Well, you had some interesting thoughts on the song itself.
Yeah, I thought it was shit.
Yeah, you wrote an article about it. Wait, I want to quote your article.
Yes, do
Because
that,
you had
please. They're
really
great.
Amazing
Jemayel
words in there.
Venom in
hated
it,
something
man.
so much.
Poison.
This is like if Jesus and Moses went off on a hill together to write a new book of worship and came back with a BuzzFeed article about the Pope's 11 best haircuts.
Yeah, this is like if Steve Jobs and Elon Musk went off on a hill to create a spaceship and came back with a Pez dispenser.
Yeah, it's great. I think it's really funny the way that you can remember your own lines. It's so self-congratulatory, you fucker. You can just
anybody's
remember
name.
all. No, you can't remember any of that shit, but you can remember all your funny quips in your throwaway articles. It's hysterical.
I respect that. And, DJs remember all their good drops. And
Jemayel remembers all his good literary drops.
That's
right.
Or
That's
verbal
right.
drops.
That's right. But I do agree with you that the song is forgettable.
You guys, the video is beautiful.
Is it?
What do you mean? Tell us more about your thoughts here.
Well, I mean, he's like driving around in some expensive car on Mulholland Drive, and
That
there's
sounds
like
so great.
there's this neon red cross that pops up, and it probably means nothing, but you think that it means something. And he lives in this house that looks like he got the idea from when he did the soundtrack to 50 Shades of Grey, and he bashes his own head because he's like, getting rid of his old hairstyle. It's lots of bad symbolism, but it's really pretty.
I think the thing that bothered me the most was when he was driving in that really, reasonably nice car. Very nice car. But there was a panther in the passenger seat.
Oh yeah.
I had mixed feelings about the panther.
I mean, I don't know. If you could drive around on Mulholland with a panther in your car, would you say no to that opportunity?
No, but the panther didn't look real. And it was reaching. I thought it was a little cheesy.
Daft Punk are boring now.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, now?
I mean, I frankly don't think that last album was particularly exciting at all. I'm so impressed by the hegemonic mind control of the Daft Punk hype. It's like everyone has been afraid to say the fact that it's just I'm not particularly excited about any of the music they've put out.
I'll tell you what.
How
though.
you feel about Daft Punk is how I feel about Fabric.
Oh no.
Great, guys.
Oh, it
Nicely
gets them off
done.
that,
Nicely done. Like that, getting those old thump ways back into gear, just shitting on things people like. No. I'll tell you what though. I think that that Daft Punk record was probably the start of reigniting the fascination and appreciation of disco music in a bit more of a widespread sense. Like they brought Chic back in, they brought Marauder back in, and like I think like the disco sort of revival that you're seeing going on right now, I think can be traced back largely to that record. And while I didn't really like it all that much, I think what it's eventually led to is good.
It's like country club disco though. It's
Yeah,
like
but whatever.
souls.
I mean, yeah, it's like
We are robots and we have no souls.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with the robot voices. Like I know it's their hallmark,
Yeah,
man,
the
but it's
vocoder,
fucking
come
come on.
It's a strange kind of phenomenon that Nile Rodgers has become like kind of a mainstay now in the public consciousness because of that album.
Yeah.
I mean, Chic were fucking massive back in the day, though.
Yeah, but
And phenomenal.
but
too.
no one had really thought about them in a little while. Yeah.
But you're right, Ross. They are responsible for the resurgence of Marauder.
Yes, that too. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
you know,
Sometimes
if
things like
nothing
that can
else.
happen. You know, Train Spotting revived Iggy Pop's career.
Oh yes. And this is a tangent, but Iggy Pop's new album is, I'm told, a return to form. But if
Who told you that?
I'm gonna bet that once again none of us have listened to it.
Yeah.
It's like none of us have listened to it.
I love how the very first episode of the show is us talking about shit we've never listened to. Makes it sound really
You should have a little
credible.
listening list for everybody before
But look,
each
I
show.
I
That would be a
seriously,
good idea.
for random things we think about, I highly recommend watching the Daft Punk weekend video because I
I
think
tried to. Your internet
the
connection is
expense of
terrible.
it is worth noting. They did not spare a penny.
They did not. And he does walk past an oil painting of Daft Punk when he walks into the house that you mentioned.
It's deep.
So there was a nice nod.
Yeah. And, you know, I want to give a bit of a shout out to the director. His name is Grant Singer. He's a pretty young gun. And I think it's cool that, you know, someone who hasn't been, like, you know, doing a million videos for 30 years was given a shot at this one. It's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. It's no formation, but it's a big
It's
deal.
no formation.
Where's Wayne Isham or Marcus Siega when you need him?
Oh, someone was watching MTV in the late 90s.
That's absolutely true.
The other album I think that's probably the biggest one of the season for dance music is Claude Von Stroke's album, the Barclay Crenshaw album. Anytime you're busting out your real name,
Yep. And it's such
You
a
mean
great
business.
real name.
It's
Barclay
a lovely
Crenshaw.
real name. Yeah,
it's like
for
just
sure.
use that.
Claude
Oh
Von
my
Stroke's
god.
also great.
It's
though.
great.
It's
They're both
really
great.
seedy. I love it.
I really hope that he recently it seems like he's been moving towards like gimmicky songs. I really hope he moves back to some groove.
Well, I said this last year, like when you released Bar Rump, I was like, if you could imagine a person that song sounded like, it would be Claude Von Stroke. It's got this kind of like sort of dumpy, humorous Bar Rump. I could just sort of imagine him plodding along and like, and he's been making music like that for a while.
Are you
you know what I
commenting
mean?
on Barclay's physical presence?
Oh, he's a huge bear man. He's, you know.
Jolly, jovial.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's not. He should be more of an icon as a bear in the gay community. But I
he's
don't think
not?
people don't really know him like that. I mean, if they know his music, they don't know his appearance well enough to embrace him. But
Maybe
Bears
it's
like good
Barclay
music, though.
Crenshaw.
Maybe
He'll
it's
break
it's gonna
through.
do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like Lady Gaga's album is called Joanne. That's her name, or it's her middle name. Like when anytime you're busting out what's on your ID.
Is he gonna sing on it? That's the one tweet I laugh at reading the most is when some DJ says, "I just sang on one of my own songs last night. I'm so stoked." And I'm like, cool. There goes your career.
When does it ever go well?
Never. Calvin Harris.
Calvin Harris, yeah, pretty
Well, no,
much. Yeah.
Nicholas
He was a
Starr.
singer
That went
before he
Nicholas
was a
really
DJ.
well, though.
He was a
That
singer.
went really-
Calvin was a singer before he was
That's
a
true,
DJ.
that's
Yeah,
true.
it was
That's true.
acceptable.
I want
in the
more
80s.
examples of this.
Well, Cascade got a Grammy nomination.
Skrillex screamed over a bunch of stuff in the early days.
That's right.
The Chainsmokers.
Thank you. Krystal Rodriguez knows.
I just got a
I'm-
shudder
I know there's
hearing that
others.
name.
I would love to discuss the fact that the Chainsmokers have become the most hated act in dance music now.
Well,
Art
let's put
department.
a pin in that. Let's not go down the hating Chainsmokers rabbit hole. We can keep big upping Claude One Stroke, but
Art department, one of those guys sings on their records, and
that led them to break up.
it did. Yeah, it did. That's right. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
no.
what I hear down the grapevine.
Well, but have you heard the Barclay Crenshaw LP?
I have not. Someone a source was in studio with it last week and said it's a game changer.
Well,
And
because,
this is someone.
because,
This is
because
someone who has no interest in promoting it. Just was like, this is the album.
I'm curious to know because he released a number of singles last fall
Yeah.
that were under his real name and they were with EPROM, some bass DJ, and they were great. Like if you love like really deep, bassy, low end, dirty music, it was all that.
I would say, from what I was told, this goes in that direction, but it's not like what we've known from Claude Von Stroke.
Well, the whole Dirty Bird scene, they all started off as jungle DJs back in the
Yeah.
day. From what
Yeah.
I know.
That's right. Yeah.
Not J Flip, but it's
I don't
another
know.
story.
Yeah.
Just
a modern
Jubilee
idea.
and Castle both have albums coming out this season. They are doing a few gigs together. I think the Just Jubilee record's going to take everyone by surprise. She is someone who people on the East Coast have loved for a while, and this is her artist album debut. It's been in the works for a minute. I think there's some big things on the horizon for her.
Well, what is her sound?
She's from Miami, and she reps Miami pretty hard. I would say she's evolving what we might think of as a Miami sound. Certainly evolved way past Miami bass.
She's one of those DJs that has been able to flip between a lot of scenes over the past few years and has been simmering in the underground for a while. So I'm really happy to see her take a step up. She deserves it.
Yeah. And Castle, he's a reliable guy for a great album, I think. And you guys will agree once you hear it.
I think I agree. I like the label.
That's probably
I don't
true.
know, I just go and listen to my own music, honestly. I don't really.
I'd just rather read a book.
Well,
Yeah,
what are you
totally.
guys
Ross,
listening
did you
to?
just
What are you listening
did Ross
to?
just low key promote his own music?
Oh no! I mean, like I
He
just go and
sings.
find.
He
I
sings
just
on
go
it.
and find what I want, and just don't really listen to what's new. I've really been.
What are
very
you
good at that.
excited about? Even if it's old.
We've been stoked on these guys, Mr. Saturday Night in New York. They do this Mr. Sunday party,
Yeah.
which is really, really cool.
Well, they also did Mr. Saturday Night.
Right. But those day parties on the Sunday are super nice. Like, and it's all like resident DJ focused. Those guys are really cool. The record
Sure.
label's dope.
I think also people in New York love an opportunity to be outside and drink alcohol
Yeah, for sure.
because they don't
Because they
get
get
that a lot.
small windows of
Yeah.
being able to do that.
Let's do
The
it.
Sundays between May and September where it's not raining are
Yeah.
few and far between, so they gotta grasp them and never let go.
And we caught one. It was wonderful.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it quite a lot.
I'd love an audio diary of your next trip to New York together.
Oh god. We tried to do Snapchat. We literally came in so strong with an
So
amazing. We did like
with
such an
30.
amazing we drew on each other's faces, and we were like, everybody this weekend, Ross and Jemayel going to be on Snapchat. Keep posted.
Wait,
We
so you-
literally did like
you promoted
2
your own
snaps.
socials?
Oh yeah,
Dude,
oh yeah, absolutely. I did. I was just like, no, we're gonna learn Snapchat this weekend. We're gonna try and be young and shit. And we just like failed so miserably.
I'm 30.
I'm too self-conscious.
Who's the best follow on Snapchat? Not of like artists.
As in the best follow to get or the best...
No, the best
honestly,
person to follow. The best like
Too
Snapchatter.
old, Zell.
Snapchat it doesn't really
You're
work
too
for
old
me.
too.
I know.
Leave it
you know,
alone.
I know I'm old because I'm happy with Facebook, and that tells me how like irrelevant
Yeah,
I am. to the
Exactly.
like-
social
And
media
even that, it's like
conversation.
not too much.
Yeah, I'll be careful with
I
this.
just recently started taking Instagram seriously
he's-
as a place to post my artsy shots of flowers and patterns on the wall.
And all the succubi you've been
Not
purchasing.
succubi, succulents, dude.
Succulents.
I've been getting it right all day, and I completely forgot. He's getting pictures of female vampires all over his, all over his Instagram.
All right, now it's time for a segment on the show that we are calling What Killed the Vibe. Katie and I are going to say a bunch of things at each other, and we will tell you whether or not it killed the vibe. Katie, would you like to go first?
I would like to go first, actually.
All right.
Okay.
Lay it on me.
Okay. Okay. Killed the vibe or did not kill the vibe? Daft Punk in the Weekend.
Killed the vibe.
Oh. The vice presidential debate.
Oh, killed the vibe. You just killed the vibe right now by mentioning that.
It had to be said. The arrival of fall.
Oh, that brought the vibe.
The closing of Space Ibiza.
Oh, killed the vibe, I guess.
Okay. Giorgio Moroder's mix in honor of the closing of Space Ibiza.
Oh, that brought the vibe.
Exactly, yeah, it did. Okay. The national rash of creepy clown spottings.
Oh, that brought the vibe. I am fucking obsessed with those clowns. I hope they don't go away. I want this to be a thing that people are irrationally afraid of for months. Sorry, Krystal's shaking her head in fear.
I'm still very traumatized by seeing it at age 5.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. Hiding in the
It
dark.
traumatized
Oh my
Krystal
God,
at age 5.
It
so
traumatized a lot of people. That's a scary movie and book. Okay. Festival porta potties.
Oh, killed the vibe.
When was the last time you were in a festival porta potty?
Oh, when was the last time that I was in a festival porta potty? Just for context, in case
4 years ago.
You'd rather
That's
drive
what you're
home.
trying not to say.
Jamayel's asking me this because he's trying to make me sound posh, I guess. Like
You're just fancy.
Yeah.
fancy.
You would rather drive home and poop in the hotel bathroom than actually go to a festival porta potty.
Zell doesn't poop, you
No,
guys.
he doesn't poop. No, not at all.
This is a conversation. We're stopping.
Okay, let's get back on track. Okay. Boys Noise's collaboration with Edward Snowden.
Oh, killed the vibe.
Okay. The relentless passage of time.
Did not kill the vibe.
All right. The new Nicholas Jar album.
I don't think it killed the vibe. I think it brought the vibe.
All right.
Maintain.
We'll wait to see what happens.
I
With it.
agree. That's all I got for you.
Okay, let me lay some on you. The ongoing festival season, mid October, and we're still going strong.
Did not kill the vibe.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Drug deaths.
Come on, killed the vibe.
The summer of death.
Killed the vibe.
Okay. Darth Vader and the Death Star.
Did not kill the vibe.
Really?
Because they've got a strong vibe, regardless of what you say about them.
Okay.
And the fact that they both go down, it doesn't matter.
This is a
Okay.
metaphor.
Claude Von Stroke, aka Barclay Crenshaw, and his album.
Did not kill the vibe.
Just Jubilee and her album.
Did not kill the vibe.
Fabric closing.
Killed the vibe.
People acting like fabric is high culture.
Oh.
Is that a weighted?
It's high like
Did
we're
not-
really high when we go there.
Did not
culture.
kill the vibe.
Okay. Sneaking cocaine into a nightclub.
Ooh. Killed the vibe.
Yeah, it kills the vibe. You know what also kills the vibe? When you see people doing it. I think that's disgusting.
Katie Bain has never done cocaine.
That's true.
Hey, Jamal's putting everyone on blast in this. Our good friends, Chris Rodriguez, Jemayel, Khawaja, Ross Gardiner.
Oh, did not kill the vibe.
All right. They brought the vibe.
Yeah.
That's right.
We have time for some final thoughts from Katie and myself. Katie, would you like to go first?
I do. Mine aren't very formal, but I just want to say that it's been a tough summer politically and culturally. It's been a really long, hard election. I am so ready for this shit to be over and hopefully see the first female president. But regardless of who you're voting for, what you believe in, I just think it's important to remember that music is something that unites people. And if you're feeling down, which a lot of people I know have been after everything that's been happening in the United States and beyond, turn up your favorite fucking song, listen to it loud, you'll feel better. It's a good antidote, and it's free.
I love it. At the top of the show, I don't know if you caught this, but Katie and I had a little fun at the expense of a former employer. And while we are totally #not sorry about it, the truth is we also don't really care that much. And the reason for that is that in the music industry and in the media world and in life in general, the only constant is change. And as I have always said to anyone who has listened, I am honored to sit at whatever table I can with people who love what they do. And there are still, I think, a few universal truths that are worth repeating. If you want to follow your passion, whether that's music or digging ditches, the only way that you're going to win is if you handle yourself with integrity and surround yourself with good people. There are those who will be petty and try to bring you down, but you can't feed them because there is nothing in this universe that will be thrown at you that you can't handle. You just got to figure out how.
Amen.
Amen, Zell.
Very nice.
Nice one. That did not
Thanks.
kill the vibe.
No, it
No,
did not.
Brought it.
That brought the
Brought
vibe.
them vibes.
We've got to give a shout out today to our executive producer, Alex Munoz, audio engineers, Andrew Conde and Anthony Russo, creative direction from Allison Snyder. Theme music was Sanctuary. by Our Time featuring Elizaveta. It was the White Zoo remix. I'm feeling that track.
Totally. And a big, big thank you to our guests, Krystal Rodriguez, Jemayel Khawaja, and Ross Gardiner. Ow! Legendary, all three of them. Until next week.
Don't kill the vibe.